Winning Blueprint presents.
It's the Redskins Report, so it's everything Redskins and anything of the sort. The 2012 Washington Redskins, your NFC East champions, the Redskins Report.
This is the Redskins Report. I'm your host, Luke. Thank you for joining me. What a huge Wednesday evening it is, not only for the Washington Redskins, but potentially for the season for the Redskins. I mean, this Wednesday could really shape or go a long way into shaping how the Washington Redskins 2013 season might look, as in Orchard Park, New York, Fred Davis was meeting with the Buffalo Bills today, and we'll talk about that in a second. I want to talk about first what was supposed to transpire in Redskins Park today, as they were supposed to meet with the 35-year-old veteran cornerback, Antoine Winfield. And look, that guy is the perfect stopgap, is the perfect cornerback to bridge the gap between this year and next year. He's not a guy that's looking for a long-term deal. At least I don't think he is. If you're the Redskins, I think you sign him up for a one-year deal. You're strapped for cash if you can. Look, Antoine Winfield is a guy that is much like London Fletcher, just at the cornerback position. He's the London Fletcher of the cornerback position. He's 35, yet he's an ageless wonder. He's just like Rondé Barber. It's like his game just ages fine like wine. He's out there making plays. He's always been a physical corner. This goes back to the days of Buffalo. Remember when he and Nate Clements were a 1-2 punch in Buffalo, were one of the best cornerback tandems in the league at that time, right around the same time when Sam Madison and Patrick Surtain were really good corners in Miami. They were a good tandem in Buffalo, and he's been physical his whole career. And he's not the biggest guy. He's 5'8", yet he's not afraid to lay the lumber on a opposing receiver, running back. Doesn't matter what your stature is. He's not afraid to get in the mix. Again, he's another one of these nosy corners. I love to call corners like him nosy because he's not afraid to stick his nose all in your business. If you're a receiver and you're coming up to the line of scrimmage and you think you're just going to get off with the free release, Antoine Winfield will come in and stick his nose in your business, get all up in your chest, jam you up at the line of scrimmage. And then if you catch the football, he's not afraid to come in and get in the mix and get in on a tackle. He's a short tackler, had over 100 tackles last year for the Minnesota Vikings alone. And so here's a guy that's not afraid to go and hit someone, in addition to the fact that he can make plays on the football. Had 3 interceptions last year. So here's a guy that can still get it done at the ripe age of 35. And so, again, he's much like a Rondé Barber, much like a London Fletcher, in the sense that he still continues to play at a very high level at his age. And if you're a Redskins fan, a guy like this would be perfect to throw into the mix, because we're looking for a veteran presence. We don't need any more young guys to come in on this roster and play. We need guys with experience. I wouldn't have mind getting a guy on the free agent market that had 3 or 4 years of experience. That was perfect. But to come in and get a rookie out of the draft and expect him to be able to pay dividends for us immediately, not going to happen. And so you need a guy with some experience that can come in and just bridge the gap, much like last season Cedric Griffin was able to do for us. A solid corner that played a very huge role in the Redskins being a solid football team in the 2012 season. Antoine Winfield can do the same thing, except we would probably be looking to have him be a starter for us if we were to bring him in. And he's an interchangeable part. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind sliding into the slot at times, playing a little bit of safety. He's probably a guy that can do a lot of different things on the football field as well. So Antoine Winfield would be a huge signing if the Redskins were able to land him. But again, we're strapped for cash. Don't forget that. And so I don't know if Antoine Winfield will be able to command a little bit more money on the market than the Redskins are able to provide for him. And so we'll see how that turns out. But that would be a great signing for the Redskins if they're able to get their hands on a guy like Antoine Winfield. Now you look in New York to Orchard Park, where Fred Davis was sitting down and meeting with the Buffalo Bills on Wednesday, and this one came out of nowhere. Again, he met with the Bills brass in D.C. on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, had dinner with them, and they wined and dined Fred, and it feels good when you're a player and teams are after you. They come and they wine and dine you. They make you feel wanted. A lot of times that's the difference between a player signing their name on the dotted line and looking elsewhere, is them feeling like they're wanted. Someone actually took the time out to go and make them feel welcome, make them feel like someone that they need, that they have to have on their football team. And sometimes that's all the difference in the world, feeling like you're wanted, feeling like you're needed somewhere. And the Bills don't currently really have a tight end. They have Scott Chandler still, but you can always upgrade at the tight end position. You can always upgrade at many positions on your football team. And the Bills are looking to do that with a guy that can come in and give them some athleticism at that tight end position, because Scott Chandler is much like Logan Paulson for us. He's not very athletic. He's not going to run by anybody. But if you throw him the football, Scott Chandler will catch it. Same thing with Logan Paulson. And that's why we need Fred Davis back, because the Bills are in the same situation that we are in. You have a guy that if you have to start him, you're perfectly fine doing so. They have Scott Chandler. We have Logan Paulson. If they have to start Scott Chandler at the tight end position, they did it last year, and he was fine in that role. If we have to do it, we did it last year when Fred Davis went down, we'd be fine in doing so. However, if you don't have to, then you don't want to. And if they can slide Fred Davis in front of Scott Chandler, like we want to slide Fred Davis in front of Logan Paulson, that's exactly what they would like to do. And that would give you a nice 1-2 punch at the tight end position and feel really good about your tight end position. And so they're going to try to wrestle Fred away from us. And again, they have money to do so. We don't have the money to contend with the Bills. And so if the Bills can convince Fred Davis that, A, we want you really bad, B, you're a guy that can be a difference maker in our offense, and this is the direction that we're going in, and we're going to turn this thing around and turn it to a winning program, then they can land Fred Davis. And if Fred Davis can convince the Bills that, A, I am not a problematic guy off the field, and B, my Achilles tendon is not a problem, I'll be ready to go 110% for you at the start of the season, I think Fred Davis could actually land in Buffalo. And that's a very detrimental blow to our chances of getting him back, because I talked about this last week when I said, look, the Browns might be out of the Fred Davis sweepstakes when they went out and got another Davis, and Kellen Davis, and signed him to a contract. I felt like that was our only competition at the time, but I also said this. I also dropped this little caveat in there before I moved on. I said, unless some other team comes in and woos Fred Davis away from us, some team off the pace, I feel really good about Fred Davis coming back to Washington. Well, the Bills are that team right now, that dark horse that came off the pace out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere, they're in D.C. whining and dining Fred Davis. And then after that, he's scheduled to meet with them on a Wednesday. Just didn't seem right. Then we find out that the Jets, after losing Dustin Keller to the Dolphins, all of a sudden they're looking for tight end help. They're interested in Fred Davis as well. And so the Redskins have more than enough competition for the services of Fred Davis. Look, at this point, I've already kind of prepared myself to not get Fred Davis back. At first, I felt really good about our chances. When it was just us and the Browns, I said, hey, even though Cleveland is home for Fred, we're home. We're home. We drafted him. He's been with us. He sees how this offense has progressed and grown and what he can be in this offense with all the weapons that we have. He wants to remain in Washington. We're going to find a way to get him back. I felt really good about that. Now you fast forward, another week down the road, and all of a sudden you got other teams interested now, teams that might not have been interested or who have been pushed in that direction because of circumstances of the market and where other players ended up landing. Now, Fred Davis, who was on the back burner, is now a big priority for some of these teams like the Jets, like the Bills, and all of a sudden now we could really be in some trouble. And I've kind of prepared myself for the scenario where Fred Davis doesn't return to Washington. I've kind of mentally started to make preparations of moving on from Fred Davis. And it sucks because, again, I think this is a guy that has the potential to be a Pro Bowler in this league and in our offense. You saw what Fred was starting to do. I mean, the little fake read option, pull it out quickly, throw it to Fred on the slant route was killing teams. I mean, Fred Davis was getting 7 catches for 73 yards on just quick pop shots on seam routes and slant routes from the fake read option, quickly throw it to Fred Davis on a slant. I mean, we were absolutely eating teams alive on that short little route. And, I mean, just the things that we could do off of that. I mean, the possibilities were endless for Fred Davis in this offense. And I think that we really need an athletic tight end to help this offense flourish. If we really want to maximize our offense and what it can be, an athletic tight end will help us do that. And so I love Logan Paulson. I think the world of him. I talk about him all the time. But he's a guy that if he catches a 12-yard pass, we'll be lucky if that's a 17-yard game because he's not outrunning anyone. With Fred Davis, he can make a guy miss, and he can outrun some linebackers and safeties in this league. And he can turn a 12-yard gain into a 27-yard gain. He can turn a 12-yard gain into a 57-yard gain. And that's what you need in this league, guys that are difference makers, guys that can make plays outside of the play itself. A play might be drawn up to get you 11 yards. You need a guy that can turn that 11-yard gain into a 47-yard gain. And Fred Davis is the guy that can do that. And so in the offense and the way it's constructed, I think the tight end is a guy that can really flourish in our offense. And so I would love to get an athletic guy like Fred Davis back in the mix. But at the end of the day, the dollars don't make sense. And right now, the Redskins' dollars don't make any sense because of that cap penalty that's been levied down by the National Football League 2 consecutive years in a row. I don't know if we're going to be able to get Fred Davis back, and I've kind of already prepared myself for the worst in that situation. And again, I'm a guy that's usually optimistic. I always feel like, hey, we can do this. This can be done. There's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. But I don't know about this one. We're starting to run out of time. The hourglass is slowly running out of sand. And with teams like the Jets and the Bills, I'm not so much worried about the Jets because their cap situation is just as bad as the Redskins. I'm more so worried about the Bills. He wined and dined with them over the weekend. Then he's meeting with them on Wednesday. It just seems like all the stars are starting to align for Fred Davis to end up in a place like Buffalo. And they have money. If he can convince them that there's not a problem off the field and the Achilles is fine, and they can convince him that, hey, we got money, and this is your role in our offense, you're going to start, and we feel like we're building something here in Buffalo, and we want you to be a part of it, I think Fred Davis might be gone to Buffalo. So we'll see how that turns out. So now, switching from that to Robert Griffin III, let's talk about Robert for a minute. And we've talked about him not rushing it back, and I think we've already kind of put ourselves at ease on that topic. I won't really get into that anymore. We've talked about that. I think we've exhausted that enough. But what I found interesting was that he sent a message to a fellow Baylor alum and ESPN anchor, Trey Wingo, that basically said, hey, look, everyone who was responsible or had some part in my injury knows their responsibility in my injury, and we just need to move forward from that. So essentially, he was taking a shot at Mike Shanahan, I think James Andrews as well. And he has culpability in it as well. He stated that. He said, look, I had a little bit to do with it, but others had their culpability as well, and everyone needs to own up to their responsibility and not make those same mistakes. If situations present themselves again, we need to make sure that we handle it a lot differently, and I'm not going to rush myself back. So he tied it all in together by saying, look, A, yeah, I hurt myself last year. I had something to do with that because I didn't pull myself out of the game. And B, the coaching staff and the doctors shouldn't have had me out on the field either. And so we're all responsible for this injury that I have right now. And we're all responsible for me not looking to become better as a quarterback right now, but instead rehabbing my knee. We're all responsible for what has happened to me. Myself, the coaching staff, and the doctors. That's a known fact. And that's what Robert Griffin III is saying. Look, we're all culpable in this. Everyone needs to accept their responsibility, and let's just move on. And I'm fine with that. A lot of people took it as a shot at Mike Shanahan. You can take it how you want to take it. He said the truth, and there's truth to it. He should have took himself out of the game, but as a football player, you don't want to take yourself out of the game. It's just like a boxer. You're not going to find many boxers that are going to call off the fight, who are going to say, hey, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting beat to a pulp. I need to stop. That's the trainer's job, to take the towel, throw it in the ring, and have the referee stop the fight. You know when your boxer, when your fighter is taking too much damage, and it's going to do more damage down the road if you don't stop the fight now. And so you know when to get in there and say enough is enough. And Mike Shanahan, it was his job to say enough is enough and get him out of there, and he didn't. And Robert, his job was to say, you know what, coach? I can't go. But again, as a warrior, just like a boxer, a football player assumes the role of warrior. You go out there and you go until you can't go anymore, or until someone tells you, hey, you can't go anymore. And so it was Mike Shanahan's job. It was James Andrews' job to say, hey, he can't go anymore. And Dr. James Andrews had said in so many words that he didn't really like Robert rushing back to the field. Well, if that's the way you feel, then you should have said something. Step up to the plate and say, look, he should not be on the field. I am not giving him the green light to get back on the field yet. He should be off on the side watching football and not playing it. And what the Redskins do with that information is their business. But he should have made sure that Robert Griffin III was on the field if he wasn't ready to go. And look, he played well in consecutive weeks against the Eagles and the Cowboys, but we knew he was hurting. We saw it. His mobility wasn't there. He was limping on the field, but he was solid. And so everyone was willing to ignore it until he finally did some really serious damage to his knee. And then all of a sudden, no one wants to take responsibility for anything. And all Robert was saying was, look, everyone had a role in me getting injured, myself included. And now we just need to move on and not make the same mistakes that we made last season. Simple as that. Oh, yeah, and by the way, I'm not rushing myself back. Cool. That's what I want to hear as a Redskins fan, and that's what I know a lot of you out there want to hear as a Redskins fan. And so a lot of people took it as him throwing pardon shots at Mike Shanahan. You can take it how you want to take it. If you take it as that, fine, run with it. But at the end of the day, mistakes were made last season. We shouldn't have a quarterback on the mend. We should have a quarterback who is honing his skills and getting better for the upcoming season. And so from that standpoint, I understand where he's coming from, and I'm totally fine with it. Last but not least, here on the Redskins Report today, I want to talk about Chase Minnefield. What if Chase Minnefield can come in and be an X factor at the cornerback position for the Redskins this year? I mean, he really impressed a lot of the Redskins coaching staff last year when he came on the scene and performed well in OTAs. Before tearing his ACL, he was really impressing the coaching staff, making plays, displaying some of the athleticism that had him as one of the most highly touted corners in college football before his junior season. And so let's see what Chase Minnefield can do He's talking about possibly coming back and being ready for the start of mini camps. And he said, look, I've been running at full speed for 3 months now. I feel really good. I'm not going to rush myself back. But I feel like I can cover NFL caliber receivers and will be able to do so in the next month or two coming up. And so what if Chase Minnefield can come in and really be a solid corner for the Redskins? Who knows? He could be the next big thing. You don't know because the talent is there. Trust me. This guy was slated to be a first-round pick before the injury. This guy was slated to be a second-round pick even with some of the injuries that he's already had. So this guy could potentially come in and do some really good work for the Redskins. We don't know. What if, though? If. It's a big word. It's only 2 letters, but it's huge. And so, much like the Giants and Terrell Thomas, and even though Terrell Thomas has shown what he can do in the league, and he can't get back to being healthy, what if Terrell Thomas can come back for the Giants? What if Chase Minnefield can play for the Redskins? Right now, we only have 2 corners on our roster with any kind of experience. E.J. Biggers, Josh Wilson. Now, we still got a guy like Richard Crawford on the roster. It'd be nice if we could get Antoine Winfield. And if we could get a guy like Chase Minnefield to step up and play some football for us, who knows? We might have a solid core group of cornerbacks. We'll see. Look, all we can do is hope for the best at the cornerback position. Right now, our safety position stinks. Haven't changed it since the offseason began. We got a lot of things to do at that safety position. It needs a total overhaul. And so we'll see. Our secondary needs work. Maybe Chase Minnefield being healthy and playing football could help us take steps to getting our secondary back to where it's actually a solid group that's not holding the Redskins back as a team. We'll see. And that's going to do it for the Redskins Report. I am a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. My Redskins spirit will never fold. Till we meet again, hail to the Redskins. I'll see you next time.
The Redskins Report.